I was struck this week by how timeless this great music is. We're firm believers that the great music of Schubert, the great music of Beethoven, the great music of Brahms and Mozart, there's a reason that it's still played. There's a reason that it hasn't faded into history. It was a moving experience to record this work. It's something that I personally have always wanted to do because I think it's one of the great works of the quartet literature, maybe one of the great works in Western civilization. I just was struck also by the interactions with the people involved in this project and how there was a sense that we were working on something great, and the music itself really spoke to everybody. I mean, we were up here working on it, but I think that there's something really, really special about this work and this combination of instruments and just bringing these things to life. And it's been going on for hundreds of years, and I think that's a real testament to its brilliance. These are the moments in our lives that we never forget because they are the reason that we do what we do, and that's very special to me.
I remember that first note we played, and I played. I was incredibly shocked. I mean, the instrument sounded great in the Fulton living room, and it sounded quite good in the rooms we were practicing. But the moment we stepped on stage, literally, I think it took about 2 seconds, and I said, whoa. The sound just kind of works with the hall. The space here is beautiful, but you could hear that the instruments were just designed to be enjoyed in a larger space, and it had room for it to develop. It was so warm, and it almost sounded like a totally different instrument to me. The moment we stepped on stage, I was actually in shock.
We spend our lives rehearsing to get on stage and play for people. And we're a sort of a highly oiled, well-trained machine as a group. But it's not until you actually get the feedback from a space that you really know if the quartet's working or not. Finding a way to project our intentions and our ideas in a way that makes sense in a space. And Da Hong has always said that the hall is for us. The hall is not for him. He doesn't care where we record. We could record in a living room somewhere. It's for us because it is the most familiar place for us to make this music. It's getting that feedback from the space that actually gives us a lot of the information that we need to perform. It's been interesting to hear how the quartet has actually grown over the week too in the space, and that's something that happens for us when we're consistently performing.
I'm gonna miss all the lights though.
Yeah, the lights.
So easy to see our music now.
David Fulton is somebody we had known of for quite some time. We hadn't actually met him. We knew that he had one of the greatest collection of fine string instruments of the 20th century. And we also knew he was a guy who founded a computer company but loved most of all music. He loved to play himself. And we were eager to meet him, and we had a friend introduce us to David. And we came in, we met, and immediately we hit it off talking about music and talking about string quartets and such. But it was when we sat down and he gave us these 4 instruments, he said, these 4 instruments go very well together. Why don't you guys give this a try, and why don't you just pick something to play? And at the time we had the Schubert G major in our fingers, so we sat down and started playing. And immediately there was something in the room, all 5 of us knew something special was going on. We were enjoying the instruments, we were enjoying how the sounds were working together, the possibilities of the instruments coming together, how they sounded, just doing whatever we wanted them to do. By the time we had finished playing the Schubert, David said, look, I have not heard a string quartet sound like this on these instruments in such a long time, and I think that this should be captured on a recording and also on film. So why don't we work on a project together?
The sound was unbelievable in their hands because they're a great quartet. And it was organ-like, it was coherent, very choral in nature, very madrigal-like actually, beautiful, wonderful, coherent sound. And actually it brought tears to my eyes, and I think I might even have seen a couple tears in John's eye and maybe even in Will's.
It was funny because David, of course, asked us who we would like as our recording engineer and producer. And I think all 4 of us, without a second delay, said, well, Da Hong.
There was a second delay.
Was there? Well, maybe from you.
You sure you want to?
But of course, Da Hong, for us, is somebody we've worked with on a number of times, and he's slowly getting friendlier and friendlier during the process. Because it's about the love, isn't it?
Of course. Chili.
Da Hong is really the best in the business, and we've enjoyed working with him in the past, and he makes such a great product. So how could we not work with you?
And we learned so much from the recording process just on its own. And what Da Hong hears through the microphones is very different than what we hear underneath our ear. And having that back and forth, both on an artistic level and on a technical level, has pushed all of us to new levels, and it's been very exciting.
I worked with the quartet for a long time, right? You're over 15 years ago, I think, the first project we did together. We all sort of grew together artistically, and we also learned how to record. From my perspective, I see the quartet growing so tremendously from your early days until now. It becomes a total masters of what you do. Also, I see the personnel change. First day I came here and we set it up and to start recording, and the sound just heard on my monitor speakers. It was like, wow. This
Is that because we got better, or because we were playing on these spectacular instruments?
Well, I mean both. I mean,
You had a new speaker.
Yeah.
I got
Better
my
microphones.
I got my ears de-waxed. No, it's the sound is spectacular. These fantastic instruments, they have so much to offer, but you also have to know how to deal with it. It's not something you can just push like new instruments. It's got so much finesse in there. By the end of the first day, the sound becomes a lot more sort of gelled together. I mean, it just sounds gorgeous. I can't wait for the thing to put together and really enjoy it.
I think the other thing that was interesting for me, we've done a number of recording projects with Da Hong, and it's usually just the five of us. It's the quartet, it's Da Hong, and we work through what we need to work through to get the recording done. But this time, because we had an entire film crew present and people really making sure that the visual element of this looks absolutely spectacular, it creates another set of issues, which is that there are distractions. But one of the things I loved is that we actually were playing to people this time. I mean, usually we play to an empty hall, and so it feels
one
a
person sitting in the hall.
Right. So it feels a little removed from what we do every day, which is perform. I wish we could have a film crew for every album, because it makes such a difference to play to people who are sitting out there listening. The quartet is a much more vibrant, much more dynamic, much more exciting group when people are listening, because I know what we sound like on stage in concerts, but I also know what we sound like in rehearsals. And to me, that was an element that I didn't necessarily expect, but I loved. I thought it was fantastic.
To the huge credit to David and also John, our video producer. I did a lot of projects before with the video together. And wherever you have a video thing going on, I felt I always have to make some sort of compromise because of schedule thing and because of the camera movement and whatnot. There's always imposed some sort of a limitation to what I usually do to get the very best musical result from that recording. But when I came in, I was give total promise that I get to do exactly what we want to do.
Yeah, the five of us were able to pretty much do what we
do
normally
exactly
do.
how we usually do the recordings, and I felt very, very lucky. Such a great, incredible video team that we're going to work together.
It's a growth process, and I find every time we're done working this process through with any piece that we record with Da Hong, the piece is at a different level. I feel like we understand it both, not just technically, but emotionally differently. And I was much more conscious of that during this process when people were watching us go through that process on camera. It was really interesting to me.
For me personally, after the sort of the first hour of trying not to just like point and say, that is awesome.
The camera's coming to you.
You've got 5 boys in a toy store here. But after the first hour of sort of getting adjusted to that, it was actually mostly something that was peripheral. It actually became a very natural process.
I think there was only one time I was truly frightened, when we had finished playing a passage and there was something right above my head. I would say that perhaps maybe this is one of the first recordings that we've done where I feel like the quartet had captured a live performance energy in it. So many times when we are playing for an empty hall or just for the microphones or Da Hong on the other side, it's hard to get that, especially when you're trying to capture certain little details. But I felt like we were able to, because there was there was this feedback energy from the crew and John and David. It was great to.
I mean,
to
I
be able to play
actually
for somebody.
felt very strongly about that. I mean, especially like after all days work, and we're done with all the sort of anachronisms of the piece, and then we decide to just run the
just
thing
run the whole
again.
thing.
Everything falls into perfect place. And that's a great experience.